Welcome back, everyone. Today we're in my kitchen with my very green countertops, and I'm going to show you how to make a pull-out in your cabinet. This can be a shelf, this can be a waste barrel, this can be a recycling bin, this can be used for whatever you want it to be. I'm going to make a pull-out recycle barrel as well as a small shelf. If you haven't already subscribed, please go ahead and do so now, and if you like this video, give me a thumbs up and check out some other videos on the channel. Alright, let's get right into it. We're going to try to make this project entirely out of scraps. I think I have enough 1/2 inch and 3/4 inch plywood to be able to do this. So ultimately, we're going to make a single pull out for the trash barrel itself. Need another slide out shelf right above it. Alright, so here's our pile of scraps. I think for the trash barrel, for the sides, I'm going to go ahead and use the 3/4 inch just to give it a little extra sturdiness. So when you're making any type of pull out or draw or anything like that, one of the first things you're going to want to do is figure out the type of slides you're going to use, because that's going to dictate a lot of how you build your draw or pull out or whatever you're using those slides for. So I went ahead and I bought these slides right on Amazon. They are soft close ball bearing slides, and these are the 22 inch long ones. So really I only need one measurement from these. So that's exactly 1 inch. So we're all set there. Since we know they're 22 inch long, I'm going to go ahead and just make the trash barrel slide and the drawer above it both 22 inches long. The actual width of the frame of the cabinet is exactly 9 inches. We're going to subtract 1 inch in total for the slides, so we know that our trash barrel slide is going to be 8 inches wide, and we know that our drawer is also going to be 8 inches wide. Now I'm going to work on the sides and the front and back of the slide outs, and I decided to make these both 3 inches deep. 3 inches gives me plenty of width to attach the slides, but for this slide out it also gives me a relatively shallow tray, but not too shallow. It still gives me, usable space for stuff without it falling out of the drawer. Okay, now to figure out the length of the piece that's going to go in between here, all we're going to do is take these two sides, press them together, and then measure from there to the edge. Now, we're doing it this way because plywood, 3/4 inch plywood, isn't 3/4 inches, nor is 1/2 inch. So this, and since this piece is exactly 8 inches, this is going to be a little bit of an off measurement. This is 6 and 19/32. So I'll go ahead and cut two pieces, one for the front, one for the back, at the 6 and 19/32, and then I'll show you what we're going to do for the 1/2 inch one. That's going to end up being the slide out, because that's going to be a little bit different. Alright, so the 1/2 inch one, this is the 3/4 inch one. The 1/2 inch one's going to be a little bit different than the 3/4 inch one. So on the 3/4 inch one, we put our sides directly on top of what's going to become the top, because this is going to get flipped over. For the drawer, if we were to do the same exact thing, we're going to be pressing down on the bottom of the drawer, pulling away from the sides. Now, this is a small drawer, so this would be totally fine as is. But what I want to do is, instead of putting the sides on the top, I want to put the sides on the side. Now, to do that, the width of this can't be more than 8 inches, and we already cut the bottom to 8 inches just because it was easy to cut two of them out at the same time. But also, since again, plywood, 1/2 inch plywood isn't 1/2 inch, I couldn't simply just subtract 1 inch, call this 7 inches, and have this fit exactly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually take these two sides, I'm going to bring them over to the table saw, I'm going to use the thickness of the plywood itself to set the table saw, and then I'm going to rip off exactly that much from the base of here. What that will do is that will allow me to put the sides on and be exactly 8 inches. If I were to just go ahead and run this through here now, after I had just set the thickness using only this plywood, it's a little snug because of the offset of the teeth. But if I do this right now, I'm still going to end up with the wrong size. And the reason for that is that blade is an 1/8 of an inch thick. So what I need to do is I actually need to take off 1/8 inch more from my measurement here, pushing it this way, so that the total removal, including the width of the blade, is 15/16. So now that I have all of the components of both of my trays cut out, the next thing that I have to do is, before I can assemble, is cut out the hole where the trash barrel will be inserted to the slide out. To do that, the first thing I have to do is find the center of the board, and then I'm going to just go ahead and use the trash barrel itself to trace a rough pattern of the hole that I need to cut. I say rough pattern because if I just simply cut the hole after tracing the trash barrel, the barrel wouldn't fit, it would slide through. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to measure the offsets, which are essentially just the lip going around the trash barrel. And in my case, the offsets are different from the narrow sides to the long sides. I'm going to then use that offset to set my compass and trace a second line around the inside of the first outline that I had already drawn on the board. And that inner outline is going to become my cut line. Now that I have my cut line, I'm just going to cut this out with a jigsaw. I find that when I'm using a jigsaw with a finish blade on it, it's rather difficult to plunge cut the jigsaw. So to make my life a little easier, I'm just going to drill a couple of starter holes in 2 of the corners. And now just follow the line until the waste barrel hole is cut out. And next, before I assemble it, I'm just going to go ahead and use the router to do a quick 1/4 inch round over around all of the surfaces just to make it a little bit smoother so that the barrel slides in a little easier. Now, up till this point, this project was going absolutely flawless. You can see that I decided I was going to drill pocket holes and use pocket holes to assemble so that all of my hardware would be hidden. What you didn't see though is that when I was setting the pocket hole jig, I accidentally set it for 3/4 to 3/4 rather than 3/4 to 1/2 inch, and that had the effect of screwing my workpiece directly to the top of my workbench. Now I could have went back and I could have re-drilled the pocket holes with the correct setting on the jig, but instead of spending that time, and because there was glue all over this piece already, I decided to just go ahead and switch over to brad nailing everything together. It's not quite as clean of a look. I did have to use wood filler, and there was a little bit more sanding, but I think I ended up with something that just as strong and just as good looking had it otherwise have been if I had got the pocket screws correct. With everything assembled and sparing you guys the sanding process and the finishing process, we're going to go ahead and take the two pullouts upstairs to the kitchen and install them in the cabinet where they're going to live. The first thing I'm going to do before anything else is I'm going to put some blue tape on the face frame of the cabinet. I'm doing this so that I can just trace an outline of where the corners of the cabinet are currently positioned, and this is going to come into play when we reattach the door. It's going to make it really easy to get the door right back to its original alignment. With the corners of the door marked out, the next thing I can do is go ahead and take off the door to make room to work inside the cabinet. Since this is a really narrow cabinet, it's already kind of tight to begin with, and as you can see, the camera angles here aren't going to be great. Anyways, after the doors come off, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to measure to install some cauls. In my case, I'm going to need 4 cauls in total, 2 on each side. And what these are going to do is they're going to allow for additional attachment points for the slide out drawer slides. The reason for this is because the slides themselves have to attach to the face frame on the outer edge, and you'll notice that all around the face frame there is a lip between the frame and the carcass, and it's about 3/4 of an inch. Now, to help with both the installation of the cauls and for the drawer slides themselves, I went ahead and I cut a bunch of spacers. It's just a lot easier and it's a lot more consistent to use spacers when setting drawer slides, and to make sure that the positioning of the cauls is exactly the same from side to side of the cabinet. With all our slides now secured to the cabinet itself, the next thing we're going to go ahead and do is attach the portion of the drawer slide that is going to go on the pull-out itself. All we're going to do here is we're going to line up the leading edge, since these are going to be flush with the cabinet door once installed, to the front of the pull-out, and then screw them to the sides of the pull-out. The only important part of the process here is that the slides are the same height from side to side. Otherwise, you're going to have a slide out or a drawer that isn't level. And now for the very last step, we're going to go ahead and install the cabinet door using that blue tape in the lines we made earlier. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to drill a few holes through the slide out forward into the cabinet where the cabinet door will be, and then we're going to go ahead and put screws into those holes, but we're only going to protrude them out a tiny bit, 1/8 of an inch or so. Then we're going to go ahead and push the cabinet door itself into those screws, making sure we're perfectly aligned with the marks we have on the blue tape. Once we've done that, we're going to just pull the cabinet door off. We'll be able to see where the screws made a mark on the back of it. We're going to put some CA glue on the back, some accelerator on the drawer slide itself, line up the screw holes, clamp it together, and fire those screws all the way home. Now we have a cabinet door attached to the drawer slide, so when we pull out that door, the entire slide out barrel comes out with it.